The night sky above the alien world was endless and cold. Stars burned like silver flames in the distance. The air was heavy with the sound of unknown creatures whispering in the dark, and in the middle of this realm stood a single human, his heart pounding. His name was Captain Elias Kane. He was no ordinary man. He was an explorer, a soldier, and a survivor of many battles. Yet as he stepped across the ancient gate into the forbidden realm, even his courage trembled. The stone around him was carved with alien symbols that glowed faintly like living fire. It was said that no outsider had ever returned from this place. And still, Elias walked deeper, refusing to turn back. The ground shook with every step he took. It was as if the land itself hated his presence. The trees twisted like living shadows, their branches clawing at the sky. Strange eyes glimmered between the roots, watching him with hunger. The silence was thick, until suddenly, a sharp voice cracked the air. "Insolent human," the voice thundered. "You dare step into the realm that does not belong to you." Elias froze, his weapon raised. From the darkness ahead, a group of alien soldiers emerged, their armor glowing with crimson light. They were tall, scaled beings with eyes that burned like molten fire. Their spears hummed with energy, ready to strike. "You must leave at once," one of them hissed. "This ground is sacred. It belongs to the Mistress alone. No human should walk here." But Elias did not move back. His voice was steady, though his heart raced. "I came for answers, and I will not leave without them," he said. The soldiers growled, their weapons sparking with deadly light, yet before they could strike, the ground split open with a terrible sound. A figure rose from the darkness. She was tall, her body wrapped in silver and black armor that seemed to flow like liquid. Her eyes glowed with burning hatred. Her hair shimmered like threads of starlight. Every alien soldier bowed in fear, pressing their heads to the ground, and Elias knew at once who she was, the mistress of the forbidden realm, the ruler of this world, the one who hated humankind more than any other. She raised her hand and the air grew heavy. "You foolish humans," she roared, her voice echoing across the valley. "You dare invade my sacred realm. You dare step where no human should ever walk. This place you tread is not soil. It is the blood of my people, defiled by your kind." Her words crashed over Elias like a storm, yet he did not bend. Instead, he tightened his grip on his weapon and looked straight at her. "I did not come to defile," Elias said, his voice calm but fierce. "I came to see the truth your people hide." The mistress's eyes narrowed, her rage burning brighter. "You speak of truth, yet your kind knows nothing but destruction," she spat. "Do you not know the last human who entered here was torn apart by my hand? Do you not fear that fate?" The soldiers behind her laughed cruelly, but Elias did not. He stood tall, though the weight of her presence pressed against him like a mountain. He knew his life could end in this very moment, but he also knew he could not turn away. Because deep inside, he felt this place held something more, something beyond the rage of the mistress, something hidden that humanity was never meant to see. The mistress lifted her hand again. Power crackled through the air like thunder. The sky above split with lightning that was not of nature but of her will. The ground shook so violently that the trees cracked apart. Even the alien soldiers trembled as her voice thundered once more. "You are no warrior here, human. You are prey," she declared. "You have walked into your death, and the last sound you will hear is my fury." Her eyes blazed, her armor shimmy, red, and the air twisted with her power. Elias felt the storm rage around him, yet still he did not move back. Instead, he whispered to himself, "If death waits for me here, then I will meet it standing, not kneeling." For a moment, silence fell. The mistress studied him with burning eyes. Something strange flickered in her expression, a hint of curiosity beneath her hatred. Then slowly, her lips curved into a cruel smile. "Very well, foolish human," she said, her voice like poison and fire. "If you dare step further into my realm, then you will learn why it is forbidden." The soldiers stepped aside. The path ahead opened into a valley of glowing ruins. Elias took a deep breath, his body tense, his mind sharp. He knew he had crossed the line. There was no turning back now, and as the mistress's voice echoed behind him, the story of survival, defiance, and war had only just begun. The ruins before Elias glowed with strange blue fire. Every stone pulsed like a heartbeat, as if the entire valley was alive. The human felt the weight of countless eyes on him, though no living beings could be seen. He stepped forward, and the whispers of the stones grew louder, like voices calling his name. Behind him, the mistress floated silently, her armor flowing like liquid shadow. Her soldiers followed in perfect order, their eyes burning with cruel anticipation. Every step Elias took was an insult to them, a crime against their mistress. But Elias did not stop, his boots striking against the ancient stone like a challenge. "Do you feel it, human?" the mistress's voice echoed. "This place is older than your fragile species, older than your earth, older than your sun." Her words carried both pride and venom. "This is where my people were born, where our gods touched the soil, and now you defile it with every step." Elias turned his head slightly, his face calm, though his heart thundered. "Then why is it empty?" he asked, his voice sharp. "If this place is holy, why does it sleep like a grave?" The soldiers hissed in fury, some raising their weapons, but the mistress raised her hand, and silence fell. Her eyes narrowed, glowing like burning stars. "You dare question what you cannot understand," she said. "You speak of graves, yet it is your species that digs them for every world you touch." Her voice turned colder. "You came here not by mistake, human, but by arrogance, and arrogance must bleed." The air grew heavy again, pressing against Elias's chest, but instead of breaking, he clenched his fist tighter around his weapon. "I did not come here to bow, mistress," Elias said, his voice steady. "I came here because humans are not afraid to walk where others tell us not to." His words struck the air like a spark, and for the first time the mistress's eyes widened slightly. The soldiers stepped forward, their spears humming with lethal energy. They moved as one, ready to crush the intruder. But Elias reacted faster than they expected. He rolled across the stone floor, his weapon flashing with light. A burst of plasma struck one of the alien spears, sending sparks into the air. The soldier staggered back, shocked that a human dared resist. The mistress's smile widened, cruel and sharp. "You think you can fight my guard, foolish human," she said. "You think your fragile body and crude weapon will save you." But Elias did not answer. He was already moving, ducking under a strike, rolling between the legs of another guard. His weapon hissed with fire as he aimed at the weak points in their armor. He was not stronger than them, but he was faster, cleverer, and unafraid to take risks. The valley shook with the clash of man against alien. Every strike was answered with defiance, every attack met with human will. And though Elias's body ached, though the odds were hopeless, he fought with a fury that none of the soldiers expected. The mistress raised her hand, and suddenly, time seemed to see. Lo, her power rippled through the ruins, freezing the air. The alien soldiers stepped back, bowing their heads in obedience. The mistress herself stepped closer, her eyes locked on Elias like a predator. "You are stubborn," she said softly, though her voice carried like thunder. "You bleed, yet you fight. You stumble, yet you rise. Is this the strength of your kind, human, or is it simply madness?" Elias raised his weapon again, blood on his arm, his breath heavy. "It is not madness," he said, his voice unshaken. "It is humanity." For a heartbeat, the mistress was silent. The ruins pulsed brighter, as if they too listened to his words. Then slowly the mistress laughed, a sound cold and terrifying. "Very well," she said, "show me the depth of this humanity you worship, and when you fall, I will carve your bones into the stones of this place, so every human will know what becomes of the defiant." Her soldiers stepped back again, leaving a circle of stone. Elias realized what was happening. This was no longer a battle of soldier against guard. This was a clash of wills, human against mistress, and only one would leave this circle alive. The mistress's armor shifted, forming blades of living shadow in her hands. The ground split with her every step. Elias tightened his grip, sweat on his brow but fire in his eyes. He knew the truth now. This fight was more than survival. This was the moment where humanity itself would be judged by the mistress. The wind howled through the ruins as they faced each other. The first strike was about to fall, and the forbidden realm held its breath. The clash had ended not with victory, but with silence. Elias stood in the circle of stone, his chest rising and falling with each heavy breath. Blood streaked his arm, dust clung to his face, and yet his eyes burned with the same fire. The mistress lowered her blades, her expression unreadable. Her soldiers waited, expecting her to strike him down, but instead she studied him, as if weighing something far greater than a single battle. "You should be dead," she said finally, her voice low and sharp. "Yet you live, you fight, you endure where others have fallen. Perhaps there is more to your kind than I allowed myself to believe." Elias wiped the blood from his face, his hand trembling but steady enough to raise his weapon again. "I told you, Mistress," he said. "I came here for truth, not surrender." The ruins around them pulsed again, brighter than before. The stones glowed like veins of fire under the earth. Strange symbols lit up along the valley walls, twisting and shifting as though alive. The soldiers exchanged nervous glances, their eyes filled with fear. The mistress's own gaze darkened, her hand clenching around her blade. Elias noticed it at once. "You fear this place," he said, his voice steady despite the weight of her presence. "You call it holy, you call it sacred, but I see something else in your eyes." The mistress's lips tightened, her voice snapping like a whip. "Silence, human. You know nothing of what lies beneath these stones." But Elias pressed on, his words cutting sharper than any blade. "You guard it not to protect it, but to keep it hidden. You fear what someone might find here. You fear what humans might uncover." For the first time, her soldiers stirred uneasily. Whispers rose among them, though none dared raise their heads. The mistress raised her arm, and the whispers died at once. Her power shook the air, her shadow stretching across the valley. "You think you see through me, human," she roared. "You think your mortal eyes can pierce the truth of gods? This place holds power beyond your understanding, power that destroyed empires before your world learned to crawl. If I allow you to touch it, you will unleash ruin upon us all." Elias stood firm, the glow of the ruins casting his face in sharp light. "If you fear it, Mistress, then I must see it," he said. "Because if humanity fears the unknown, then humanity dies in the dark. We are what we are because we step where others will not." The stones thundered with light. A deep rumble echoed from beneath the valley, shaking the ground. Cracks spread across the ruins, and from within them rose pillars of blue fire. The symbols on the walls twisted, forming shapes that neither human nor alien had seen for ages. It was as if the valley itself had been waiting for a voice brave enough to demand truth. The soldiers fell to their knees, covering their eyes. Some cried out in fear, others begged the mistress to end it. But the mistress herself stood frozen, her eyes wide with rage and something else, fear. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "You fool, you have awakened it. Do you know what you have done?" The ground split open before Elias, revealing a chamber below. The glow of forbidden power seeped out like the breath of a sleeping giant. Steps of black stone led down into the depths. The air itself hummed like a song of warning. Elias stared into the abyss, his heart pounding like a drum. He did not know what waited below, but he knew this was why he had come. The mistress's voice cut through the silence. "Human, if you take one step into that chamber, you will not only seal your fate, you will bring death upon your people, upon every world you call yours." Her voice cracked with fury and desperation. "Leave now, and I may let you live. Continue, and I will tear your soul apart with my own hands." Elias looked back at her, his eyes fierce. "You call me foolish, Mistress," he said, "but perhaps your fear is greater foolishness than mine. If there is power here, then humans must know it, because only in knowledge do we survive." The mistress trembled with rage. Her soldiers cried for his blood. The ruins roared with light, the chamber below singing with power, and Elias placed his foot on the first step. The world seemed to hold its breath. The mistress's eyes blazed, torn between striking him on and letting the chamber consume him. And so the human descended step by step into the heart of the forbidden, step by step into the secret the mistress had sworn to bury. The fate of his people and perhaps the galaxy waited in the shadows below. The chamber swallowed Elias in shadow as he descended the ancient steps. Each step echoed like a drumbeat, calling something long buried to awaken. The air grew colder, thicker, filled with the taste of metal and ash. Strange blue light pulsed from the walls, flowing like veins carrying living fire. Behind him, the mistress's voice thundered across the valley. "Human, return at once, or I will burn this world around you." But Elias did not stop. His heart raced, but his spirit held firm. He had come too far to turn back. And the chamber seemed to demand his presence, pulling him deeper with every breath. The soldiers at the surface cried out for their mistress to strike, yet she did not move. Her glowing eyes followed Elias with fury and fear. Her hand trembled as her blade of shadow flickered. For the first time, she hesitated, and her soldiers saw it. Elias reached the chamber floor. There, in the center, stood a colossal machine buried in stone. It looked alive, its surface breathing with light. Symbols older than any language he knew glowed upon it. The energy from the machine pulsed through the ground, shaking the ruins above. Elias stepped closer, awe in his eyes. This was no temple, no grave. It was a weapon. The mistress's voice echoed down into the chamber, sharp and furious. You dare touch what belongs to the gods. This power was sealed so your kind would never find it. Do you not see, foolish human? This is not salvation. It is the end of all things. Elias turned his head upward, his voice calm but heavy. Maybe it was never yours to keep hidden, he said. Maybe this power was waiting for humanity, aiding for someone unafraid to claim it. The ground cracked as the mistress dropped into the chamber. Her arrival shook the stone like an earthquake. Her soldiers dared not follow. Only she and the human faced each other before the living machine. Her rage burned brighter than the blue fire. You speak of claiming, she hissed, her armor stretching into jagged blades. You think your kind has the right to touch the fire of gods? You are insects clawing at the sun, and now you will burn. She struck faster than lightning. Her blade slashed through the air with deadly force. Elias dove aside, the edge cutting stone like paper. Sparks flew as his weapon fired, bursts of plasma striking her armor, but her body moved like shadow, absorbing the hits with ease. The machine pulsed brighter with every clash as if it fed on their fury. The chamber walls cracked, dust raining from the ceiling. The mistress roared, her power exploding outward. A wave of dark energy slammed Elias into the ground. His weapon skidded across the stone, out of reach. She towered over him, her blade at his throat. Her eyes glowed like firestorms. This ends now, human, she whispered. You die, and your kind will never touch this power. But Elias, broken and bleeding, still stared into her eyes. His voice was a rasp, but his will unshaken. Then kill me, mistress, but know this. Even if I fall, another human will rise, and another after that. We are not afraid of you. We are not afraid of gods. For the first time, her hand trembled. The blade pressed against his throat, yet she did not strike. Her soldiers above shouted for her to finish him, but the mistress did not move. Her eyes flickered, filled with confusion she had never known. The machine pulsed once more. This time, the light shot upward, filling the chamber with blinding brilliance. Symbols spun across its surface, and a voice, neither human nor alien, filled the air. Seeker of truth, it said, its tone ancient and endless. You have awoken the heart of the realm. Elias gasped. The mistress froze, the soul did. Eyes above fell silent, the voice echoed again. Only the worthy may wield the fire of the ancients, and the test has begun. The ground shook violently, the machine's light split into streams that coiled around Elias and the mistress, binding them in a circle of living flame. The chamber roared with power, sealing them inside. The mistress's rage twisted into horror. This was never meant to happen, she cried. Human, you have doomed us all. But Elias, though battered and broken, slowly rose to his feet, his eyes locked on hers, his voice steady. No, mistress, he said. This is where it truly begins. The chamber shook as the ancient machine's voice faded. Elias and the mistress stood trapped in the circle of living flame. The soldiers above the ruins watched in terror but could not enter. This was no longer their battle. It was a trial between the human and the mistress, chosen by the ancient power itself. The flames rose higher, wrapping around Elias's body like chains. He felt them burning into his skin, yet they did not destroy him. Instead, they whispered in his mind, testing his will, showing him visions of earth, of home, of the people he swore to protect. The machine's voice echoed again. Strength is not enough, courage is not enough. To wield the fire of the ancients, the soul must endure. The mistress screamed as the same flames bound her. Her armor cracked under their weight, her voice full of rage. This is a trick, a lie. I am the mistress, the chosen ruler of this realm. No human can stand equal to me. But the flames twisted her words into silence. They reached into her mind, pulling out her fears. Her face twisted as visions of her own past spilled before her eyes. Worlds she had destroyed, species she had enslaved, and the shadows of her victims screamed louder than her pride. Elias fell to one knee, his body trembling, but deep inside, he refused. Said to break, he whispered to himself, "Pain will not stop me, fear will not stop me, because humanity never stops." The fire flared brighter around him, as though it fed on his words. The machine's voice thundered. The human heart burns against despair. This is the spirit that defies the void. The mistress saw it. She saw how the flames embraced Elias instead of consuming him, how his broken body still stood tall while her own strength faltered. Her eyes widened with disbelief. "No, this cannot be. You are weak. You are flesh, mortal, fragile. How do you endure what even I cannot?" Elias lifted his head, his voice raw but strong. "Because I fight not for myself, mistress. I fight for those who cannot fight. For those who look to the stars with hope. That is what makes us human." The chamber roared with light. The ancient machine responded to his words. Symbols across its surface spun faster, glowing brighter. The flames binding Elias turned into wings of energy, lifting him to his feet. The mistress staggered back, her own chains growing heavier, her pride shattered under the weight of truth. For the first time, fear filled her voice. "You would dare challenge me with hope," she hissed. "You think your people's weakness is power? You think your defiance can match my reign?" Her words shook with desperation, because she knew the answer, because she felt the machine choosing him over her. The soldiers above cried out in confusion. Some shouted for the mistress to strike. Others whispered that the human might be chosen. The very order of their world trembled. The mistress raised her blade again, her eyes blazing. "If I cannot break you with fire, I will break you with steel." She lunged, her strike fueled by rage and fear. But Elias met her blow. His weapon burned with the power of the flames. When their blades clashed, the shock wave shook the chamber to its core. Stone shattered, the valley above split open. The ancient machine screamed like thunder. It was no longer testing them. It was awakening fully. Elias's voice cut through the chaos. "You call me foolish, mistress, but the greater foolishness is to believe fear is stronger than hope." The mistress's blade trembled against his. Her strength faltered, her fury no longer enough. The chamber erupted in a storm of light. The ancient machine's voice boomed once more. "One endures, one falters. The fire chooses." The flames collapsed into Elias. They surged through his body, filling him with a force greater than he had ever known. His eyes glowed with the same blue fire as the machine, and the mistress fell back, her body shaking as the chains dragged her down. Her scream echoed with fury and despair as she realized the truth. The ancient power had chosen the human. Elias stood in the center of the storm, his body broken but unyielding. The fire of the ancients burned within him, and the mistress, once untouchable, now looked upon him with fear. The trial was not over. The true battle was yet to come. But in that moment, the galaxy had shifted, because a human had been chosen by the fire of gods. The chamber trembled as the fire of the ancients burned within Elias. The blue light surged through his veins, his eyes glowing like twin stars. The soldiers above cried out in disbelief, some kneeling, others fleeing. For the first time, they saw their mistress not as a goddess, but as a rival to a human. The mistress staggered back, her chains still burning into her armor. Her pride was shattered, but her fury was not. Her voice rose like a storm, shaking the ruins. "No machine, no flame, no god will strip me of my throne. If the fire dares choose a human over me, then I will destroy both." Her power erupted like a black sun. The chamber walls split apart, stone and fire crashing down. The ancient machine screamed as her darkness clashed against Elias's light. Two forces collided, one of rage and fear, the other of hope and defiance. The valley above showed, okay, as if the world itself was tearing open. Elias gritted his teeth, his body barely holding against the storm. The fire within him gave strength, but it demanded everything. Every heartbeat felt like burning, every breath like breaking, yet he refused to fall, because he knew this fight was not for him alone. It was for humanity, for Earth, for every voice that had ever been silenced by alien chains. The mistress charged, her shadow blades clashing against his weapon. The sound of their strikes echoed like thunder across the realm. She fought with desperation, every swing fueled by rage, but Elias met her blow for blow, his weapon burning brighter with every strike. The fire seemed to grow stronger the longer he endured, as if it fed on his unyielding spirit. The soldiers above watched in silence. Some no longer dared to cheer for their mistress. Some whispered in awe of the human. The balance of fear was shifting. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. The mistress screamed, her voice splitting the air. "You are nothing, Elias Kane. You are flesh and dust. I am eternal." Her blade struck with the force of a mountain, but Elias caught it, his hands shaking, his knees buckling, and still he pushed back, his voice rising above the roar. "No, mistress, you are not eternal. You are fear, and fear always falls." The machine responded, its symbols blazing. The flames around Elias surged into wings of light. They lifted him high above the mistress. The chamber glowed so bright it blinded the soldiers. The ground cracked open, swallowing the valley in fire and shadow. The mistress leapt, her rage refusing to die. She struck upward, her blade aimed at his heart, but Elias descended like a comet, his weapon blazing with the fire of the ancients. Their clash shook the sky. The shockwave ripped through the ruins, tearing the world apart. For a moment there was silence, only the sound of stone falling, fire burning, and the whispers of the machine. The mistress fell to her knees, her blade shattered, her armor broken, her eyes wide with dew. His belief. She had faced countless enemies, crushed countless worlds, but here, in the heart of her own realm, she was brought low by a single human. Elias stood above her, his body broken, his breath heavy, yet the fire still burned within him. He raised his weapon, the light glowing brighter than ever. The soldiers trembled, waiting for the end. The mistress looked up at him, her voice trembling for the first time. "You cannot win, human. Even if you strike me down, my people will rise, my empire will endure. You will be hunted, your kind destroyed." Elias's eyes blazed with fire. His voice was steady. "Then let them come, because humanity does not surrender." The machine roared with his words. The flames wrapped tighter around him. The mistress screamed as the ground split open beneath her. Light and shadow tore at her body. Her power faltered, her voice broke. For the first time, she knew what it was to fear. And in that moment, the galaxy shifted again. The mistress was no longer a goddess. She was prey, and humanity stood as the predator. The chamber was falling apart, stone collapsing in waves of fire. The ancient machine screamed like a living god, its power shaking the world. Blue light and black shadow swirled in endless battle. And in the center stood Elias, the chosen of the fire, and the mistress, broken but unyielding. Her armor cracked, her blade shattered, but her eyes still burned with defiance. She staggered forward, her body trembling, her pride bleeding into despair. "You cannot end me, human," she rasped, her voice raw with rage. "I am eternal. I am mistress of this realm. If I fall, the galaxy will burn with me." Elias stood tall, though his body was broken. The fire of the ancients burned within him like a storm. He raised his weapon, its light piercing the collapsing chamber. His voice carried across the ruins. "No, mistress. If you fall, thus, a galaxy will finally be free." The flames surged higher, wrapping around his weapon. The mistress screamed, summoning the last of her strength. Her shadow rose like a tidal wave, striking against his light, but this time the fire did not resist alone. It answered to his spirit. It grew brighter with every heartbeat. It roared with every word he spoke. "You called me foolish," Elias shouted. "You called me weak, but it is you who could never see. You rule with fear, but fear dies the moment someone stands against it." The chamber split open, the machine's core rising into the air. The fire flowed into Elias, the shadow tearing from the mistress. Her scream filled the valley, echoing for miles. Her soldiers covered their faces, unable to look, because they knew the truth. The fire had chosen, and their mistress was no longer worthy. The last of her blade dissolved into ash. The flames consumed her shadow, and with a final cry of rage and despair she fell. Her body collapsed into the stone, her crown shattering into dust. The mistress of the forbidden realm was no more. Silence fell across the valley. The soldiers trembled, their eyes wide, their bodies frozen. They expected the human to finish them, to take their lives as revenge. But Elias lowered his weapon. The fire still burned within him, yet his eyes softened. He looked at them, not as enemies, but as survivors. His voice was steady. "I am not your conqueror. I am proof that humanity will never kneel. The ancient machine pulsed one final time, its voice echoing like thunder across the ruins. The trial is complete. The fire has chosen. The realm belongs not to fear, but to defiance. Then the machine sank back into the earth, its light dimmed, its voice fading into silence. The valley was scarred, broken, but alive, and the human's name had been burned into its heart forever. The soldiers slowly knelt, not to the mistress, but to the human, not out of worship, but out of awe. They had seen what no alien had ever seen. They had seen a human stand as he, against a goddess, and win. Elias turned his gaze to the stars above. His body ached, his wounds deep, but his spirit unbroken. He whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." Because he knew the truth, the mistress was not the last enemy. The galaxy was vast, filled with powers waiting to crush humanity. But now the galaxy also knew something it had never understood before, that humans may bleed, humans may break, but they never surrender. And from that day forward, the story of Elias Kane spread across the stars, a warning, a legend, a promise, that when humanity walked into the forbidden, even gods would tremble.